After the events of the previous film, Casey has taken control of the Kogen Ninja Dojo as its master, along with his now wife Namiko.
Yep.
The next day, Casey visits a jewelry shop in town to buy a pendant for Namiko when he notices two thugs watching him from outside. He completes his purchase and is leaving when the men begin to follow him. Casey loses the men by hiding on the roof of a building, but they catch sight of him when he comes down. The two thugs confront Casey with a knife, demanding his wallet, which he hands over, but when they demand the pendant, he refuses. The men try to attack him. After defeating the men, Casey notices the symbol on the knife before leaving. Later at dinner, Namiko wants him to call the cops, but Casey tells her it's just money and he is fine. Casey gives her the pendant, and Namiko is pleased with the gift as he puts it around her neck. He plans to make both her and their unborn child happy, and the two share a kiss. Namiko is unable to sleep that night, craving chocolate cake, but tells Casey he doesn't have to go. He is determined to fulfill her craving, so she asks him to grab some chocolate and seaweed snacks also. Casey heads over to a convenience store. Meanwhile, Namiko is unaware of the shadow just outside her door. Casey gets the snacks but realizes he has left his wallet at home. He gets in, only to see Namiko dead in their flat with a barbed wound around her neck. He holds her close to him and cries for her, but Namiko is already gone. The cops are called to the scene, and Casey is questioned about anything missing from the home, and Casey tells them that everything that matters is gone. The funeral service for Namiko is soon held at the dojo, and Casey says his final goodbyes to his wife and child. A former student, Nakabara, turns up at the funeral, and the two sit and talk after. He is also hurt knowing Namiko was pregnant, as she was a sister to him. He asks about the investigation, and Casey tells him the cops are calling it a robbery gone bad, but Casey doesn't believe it. Nakabara offers to have Casey train at his dojo to ease his grief, but Casey has other plans on his mind. Meanwhile, in Burma, a man arrives at a heavily guarded base, which is also a cover for a massive drug operation. He is led to meet the boss, Goro, who asks him about a shipment he delivered almost 2 years ago, but after going over the books, the shipment came up short. The man claims maybe the crew stole from him, but Goro reveals they are all dead. Goro's bodyguard puts a gun to the man's head, and Goro pulls out a chained weapon with barbed hooks and kills the man with it. Casey suspects that the muggers are the culprits and learns of the dojo that trains them. He tracks down the dojo and enters as other students are sparring. He tells them he is looking for someone, and when they try to force him out, Casey attacks them. After defeating the men, he demands that one of them tell him what he wants to know. He tracks down the men and finds them eating in a restaurant. He has the waitress deliver Namiko's pendant to them and ensures they see him before leaving. The two men follow Casey into an alley, pulling a gun, but he ambushes the man and cuts off one of their hands. After killing both men brutally, he takes back Namiko's pendant and leaves. Casey takes up Nakabara on his offer and travels to Thailand by boat. He takes a small car to Nakabara's dojo, which seems to be doing well. The friends reunite, and Nakabara is happy that Casey changed his mind and decided to visit. Nakabara then introduces his senior students, Hiroshi and Lucas. Lucas tells Casey that he is a big fan and watched him spar with an old rival when he was younger. After getting settled in, Casey speaks with Nakabara. Nakabara explains that his father founded this martial arts school after serving for many years in a special ninja fighting force, and he returned to Thailand to continue his father's dream. Casey joins Nakabara's class and is soon set to spar against Lucas. The two both manage to score wins against each other, but Lucas draws a wooden sword. Lucas lands a punch out of reflex, but Casey loses his temper and attacks Lucas with the sword until Nakabara stops him. Nakabara scolds Casey for losing his temper and dishonoring their sensei and demands that he do the fire walk as penance for his actions. That night, the hot coals are prepared for Casey to walk over them. Nakabara reminds him to control his emotions to complete the challenge, but as he walks, memories of Namiko flood his mind, and he abandons the fire walk. He goes binge drinking at a bar in town, and a man spills drinks on him, then tries to attack Casey but gets knocked down. The man's friends won't let that slide and attack. After defeating the men, Casey grabs his drinks and staggers out of the bar. The next morning, Lucas finds a hungover Casey and offers to take over his chores as he feels bad for causing Casey to get angry. Casey returns to his room to get some rest. Lucas is picking fruit when he is ambushed and killed by the barbed weapon that was used to kill Namiko. When the dojo is alerted, Casey is shocked to see the same wound around Lucas's neck as Namiko. After Lucas's body is taken away, Casey tells Nakabara about the matching wounds on Lucas and Namiko and thinks that he was the intended target. Later, Nakabara tells Casey the story about the top 3 students at the Koga Ninja Academy: Casey's adopted father Takeda, Nakabara's father, and another man, Isamu. When their sensei died, Isamu challenged Takeda for the dojo, but Takeda killed Isamu in the battle. While Takeda ran the dojo, Isamu's younger brother Goro, who had seen his brother die, swore to get his revenge no matter how long it took. Goro grew to become one of the most powerful drug kingpins in Burma. Casey wonders why Nakabara is telling him all this, and Nakabara reveals that Goro teaches his assassins to kill using the Maneki Kusari with barbed wires instead of a chain. This would mean that Goro is responsible for Namiko and Lucas's deaths and is the one hunting Casey as he is Takeda's son-in-law. Nakabara even suggests he return to America before things get worse, but Casey refuses to run from his problems. That night, Nakabara is practicing when Casey tells him he plans to go after Goro and wants to know his location. Nakabara can see that Casey wants revenge and urges him not to go, but Casey thinks he doesn't have a choice. Nakabara relents and tells him about Goro's heavily guarded compound hidden in the Burmese jungle, but Casey isn't fazed and plans to go. Later, as Casey is packing, Nakabara shows him a map his father created while in the jungle. He points to a marker where his father buried his ninja companions, which is close to Goro's compound, and notes that weapons are buried with the men. Casey thanks him for the help, and Nakabara reminds him that if he seeks revenge, he needs to dig 2 graves. Casey soon arrives in Burma and gets a cab, where he meets the driver Mike and asks him to take him to the market, also asking the driver to wait for him. He grabs a few items in the market before returning to the cab, offering Mike $200 to hire him for a few days. They get to a hotel, and Casey asks him about Goro, but he claims he has no idea. Casey gets himself a room, where he begins to use the items he purchased to create poison-tipped weapons. He has Mike drop him at a bar where he can get more info on where Goro's hideout is. He enters and orders a drink when a man approaches his table, asking if he is lost. The man offers Casey drugs, and he acts interested, so the man tells him to follow him outside. Outside, the man offers Casey a hit, and not wanting to draw suspicion, he accepts. He tells the man he wants to buy more, but the drugs begin to take effect, and he lets it slip that he is looking for Goro. Hearing the name, the man summons other gangsters who surround Casey. Casey defeats the men, then holds a knife to the dealer, demanding to know where Goro is. The man explains that everyone knows Goro, but no one has ever seen him. Casey returns to the cab, all bloody and sweaty, and heads back to his apartment. He gets in, still sweating and shaky, and tries to rest it off, but a few minutes later, Burmese soldiers burst in to arrest him. Casey fights off the first set of soldiers and escapes the room. He fights his way out of the building and is about to make his escape until he is surrounded and captured by soldiers. They take Casey into custody and transport him back to military headquarters under heavy guard. The men bring Casey to their torture room and demand to know why he is asking about Goro. He tells them he is just a tourist, but the general does not believe him and prepares to torture him. Casey demands to speak with the American consulate, but he is denied. The torturer heats up an iron, then presses it against Casey's legs. He tells the general he is just a tourist, but they accuse him of being a spy and continue his torture. Casey seemingly passes out from the pain, and when the men prepare to lock him in a cell, he attacks the guards and escapes the jail disguised as a soldier. The other soldiers are busy hosting a chicken fight, so Casey breaks into the general's office and attacks him, demanding to know where Goro is, suspecting he knows. The general gives up the location, and Casey kills him. He sees Mike demanding payment from a policeman outside, sneaks into his car, and manages to escape the compound. Mike is shocked, seeing Casey, who knows that Mike was the one who sold him out to the cops. He denies this, but Mike explains he is only trying to stay out of trouble and make a living. Casey gets off at the entrance to the jungle and gets a boat ride to take him deeper into the forest. He continues the journey on foot using Nakabara's map and makes camp for the night. The next morning, he is awakened by a voice but quickly hides before soldiers come into view. They see the fire and suspect that someone is nearby. One soldier comes close to Casey, who swiftly takes him out. After defeating the squad of soldiers, Casey continues his trek into the jungle when he comes upon the burial ground Nakabara told him about. He sees Nakabara's family crest and digs at that spot to reveal a box holding ninja tools, weapons, and gear. He also sees a photo of a woman and child, which brings back memories of Namiko, and he breaks down, apologizing to her. That night, Casey assembles the katana in the dark. We then see him in full ninja gear doing the Kujikiri, preparing to launch his assault to take his revenge. Casey gets to the compound. He scales the walls using a grapple and swiftly takes out 2 patrolling soldiers. He then blows up a room filled with soldiers, which alerts Goro, who grabs his weapons. Casey launches a full-scale attack on the responding soldiers. Goro's right-hand man steps out to face Casey, and the two have an intense battle. They seem evenly matched with their strikes, but Casey gradually beats him down before killing him with his own blade. He heads inside to face Goro and finds him waiting for Casey. Casey tells him that Takeda's daughter was his wife and attacks him, but Goro is fast even in his old age. Casey manages to slash him, so Goro grabs a sword and, along with a Maneki Kusari, almost decapitates Casey, but Casey summons his strength and throws Goro before decapitating him. Casey returns to Nakabara's dojo, who is pleased to see his friend alive. In his office, Casey sees a man deliver a box, but the man is carrying a knife with the same symbol as the muggers. Casey gets suspicious, thinking that Nakabara set him up by sending the muggers and killing Namiko. Nakabara then reveals his true face, revealing that Casey needed proper motivation. Nakabara himself has become a drug lord, but Goro was interfering with his operations. Casey tells him that Namiko was pregnant, but Nakabara simply says he did not know. He offers Casey the choice to join him or die, but Casey tells him there's only one choice. Casey kicks him through a wall into another room filled with artifacts. Nakabara disappears for a while before launching a surprise attack. The two fight using all the weapons around them, and they severely wound each other. Casey gets knocked down, but he grabs a Maneki Kusari and wraps it around Nakabara's neck, cutting him down like he did to Namiko. The next morning, one of the students, Hiroshi, stumbles upon Casey and Nakabara's dead body. Casey tells him to check the box, and inside they find it stacked with drugs. Casey explains to him what Nakabara was up to, But Hiroshi wants to maintain the integrity of the dojo and chooses to cover it up. He bids Casey farewell, and Casey leaves the dojo. He returns to Japan, where he tosses Namiko's necklace into a pond, finally bringing closure to his loss.